makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
Britain's unstoppable march towards fascism took another step this week when the government gave its tacit approval and support for a song called One Britain, One Nation to be sung in schools. Now, I want to be clear, this is not like a law, it's not an official decree. It's merely a suggestion, but it's essentially a tacit endorsement by the government. And this is a really funny song, okay? Well, that's the news. It was written by children from St. John's Primary School in Bradford, and it was basically started. It was a campaign started a couple of years ago. I think it was 2013, by a retired policeman, Kash Singh, which by the name you can tell that he's not white British, and I'll explain why this is relevant. Supposedly to, quote, create a strong, fair, harmonious, and a proud British nation, celebrating patriotism and respect for all our people. Of course, something like this has been completely lambasted on social media, in a lot of segments of the press, and for very good reason. These ridiculous kind of public shows of nationalism are very un-British. And as someone who has lived in Britain for the better part of the last century, I can definitely tell you that Britain really has a resistance to these kinds of displays of patriotism. It's not a country that, for example, flies the Union flag everywhere you go. In London, 90% of all Union flags that you will find in London are in tourist shops. That's a fact. It's a country that doesn't have, for example, a national ID, because that would be some sort of attack against civil liberties and individualism. And there's really, there's an ongoing debate about British values and what they mean, and the country still hasn't really decided what the hell a British value is. So it's kind of strange that then you promote this song, which supposedly is to reinforce those values that you still haven't decided what exactly are. Now, the flip side of this is that the few instances of public displays of patriotism are also a sign of why they're wrong. So the example that I always give is the poppy. During November, or in the weeks around Armistice Day, it is normal for people in Britain to wear a poppy on their suits or jackets or whatever. This is basically a donation that is made to the British Legion, which is the sort of the charity that supports British veterans, which is fine. I have no objection to that. But it gets to the point where literally like 80-90% of people wear it. And so the people who don't wear it are questioned. Not openly, but you can tell. It's like if you see a panel show around November any year in Britain, and you see everyone in the panel wear their poppies, except one of them, you're immediately thinking, and this is like almost a natural instinct. This is like even myself, who do not subscribe to this, will look at it like, is he like secretly, is that person a Republican, or are they, traitors, or you think that. So that's basically the problem of these displays of nationalism or patriotism, however you want to call it. If you're the kid who doesn't want to sing this song, even though it's voluntarily, you will be seen as weird. You will be probably mocked. You might even be insulted, especially if you're foreign. If you're the brown kid or the black kid in school who does not want to sing One Britain, One Nation, I'm pretty sure that in a country where bullying and harassment in schools is completely normalized, you're not going to get away with it very easily. So this is very problematic, like really, really problematic. And a lot of people have justified it on grounds that, well, in the US, you have the Pledge of Allegiance in classrooms. Yeah, that's also really ridiculous. Like, it shouldn't exist. These public displays of patriotism don't make people more patriotic. They don't make people better. I say this as someone who's from a country, Mexico, which every Monday in public schools, children basically have this ceremony where they salute the flag. And does that make Mexicans like not be corrupt or not, does that make Mexicans better citizens? It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. It makes them think that they're patriotic just because they do these ceremonies. But it doesn't actually make them love their country in terms of what they do on a day-to-day basis. So I'm very much against that. I do consider myself a patriot. I love my country. But I really, really hate public displays of patriotism or nationalism because it's so easy. The benefit that they bring is almost non-existent. And yet the drawbacks are huge. So now that's the serious bit. Now let's get to the funny bit, which is the actual song. And I'm going to show you the official lyrics video. So yeah, it's cringe. I mean, I'm sorry for the kids who wrote it, but it is something straight out of a North Korean propaganda song. So the funny, I love that they're using a sports analogy when in fact there is no such thing as a British team. Like in football, each nation in the United Kingdom plays separately. You have England, you have Scotland, you have Wales, you have Northern Ireland. They don't play as a team. Even in freaking sports, they don't play as a team. Oh God. The obligatory World War I and II reference, of course. All right-wingers love this. It's ironic that the government that's like openly anti-immigrant is promoting a song that says we've opened our doors, because it clearly doesn't see immigration as a good thing. And then this thing about widen our island shores, like, is this justifying colonialism? Like, is this like a tacit approval of empire? I can't interpret it in any other way than this. That's like the token, pro-diversity phrase to make right-wingers think that the song isn't really right-wing. They're like, oh, but it mentioned races. It can't be racist in any way. A lot of people would rather, this definition of race just be like, oh, yeah, diversity is English and Welsh, not the browns or the blacks. This is North Korean. This is literally like you can even it's just written in a way like, oh my god, this would be like a direct translation of a North Korean song. uh, oh my god, this is crazy. This is, oh my, I just can't think how you can think that this is a good idea, that this is like a good song that you wanna. Holy shit! Oh my god, this is hilarious. It's just hilarious. Just imagine like a North Korean like Kim Jong Un when you read this, and it'll make sense. It'll make more sense. Oh god. And the funny thing is that this is an actual organization that's pushing this, and a lot of their videos just don't have comments enabled just because they don't want the ridicule. And on social media, it has been ridiculed quite extensively. And this one was great. This is, he does, yeah, it fits him. This hairstyle fits him. Yeah. That's Laura Kunsberg, by the way, for those who aren't familiar with British politics. She is the BBC's main political editor. And how do I put this nicely? Not the most politically unbiased human being in the world. Hence why she is in this meme. But yeah, almost like this has been savaged like throughout. There's very few, like you have to really go to, you know, the cesspool of right wingers who are defending this song, which is sad. And so here's the guy who made that's Kash Singh, and I feel sorry for him because I mean I don't know if he's really a right winger. Maybe he's clearly an immigrant, and I think his backstory says that he arrived to Britain when he was young, or I don't know. But you know, maybe maybe there were good intentions behind this song. You know what I mean? Like he found a country that welcomed him. He became successful, and well, now this is his way of paying gratitude to the country that embraced him. So I don't want to in any way suggest that the song had an original fascist intention. It could have been well intended, but it's just something that you should, you know, if you've lived so long in Britain, you should have gotten the gist that a song like this was not going to go down well with people, especially in a country where, you know, the UK is not a united country. I mean, it's a political union, but it's 4 different nations that have very unique and distinct identities, and one of which, Scotland, doesn't even want to be in this union nowadays. And you know, this is, you can't force unity on a country like this. Like, you have to accept like some degree of national identity that is beyond, and by national I mean the nations, not the kingdom, not the United Kingdom. I mean the 4 nations that are part of the United Kingdom. You have to accept at some point that these nations have identities, and that they see themselves as part of their nation before the fact that they see themselves as British. You don't go to Scotland, or you don't, you know, if you speak to a Scottish person anywhere in the world and you ask them, where are you from? They're not going to say, I'm British. Not a single Scottish person will say, I'm British. They'll say, I'm Scottish. They'll have a British passport. Maybe they'll have served in the British Army. But they don't identify themselves as British. Same as the Welsh. Same as the Northern Irish. Unless you're a unionist, I guess. I don't know unionists. So that's the fact that, you know, these people don't. And this guy arrived to Britain, and that's why he sees it as Britain, right? He sees it as a country because wherever he arrived in Britain, it was not it was the sort of broader UK that embraced him. It wasn't the individual nation, because he didn't have a tie to one of these four nations. So that's why it's easy for him to see himself as British, whereas a native person will not. So that's what I think is probably like the good intention that he had, but it's completely disassociated with how many, the grand majority of native Britons see themselves as, and they don't see themselves as British. So the other point is that the government has been pushing these kinds of things because it feels that it needs to push more patriotism and more nationalism. Because, let's be honest, the Boris Johnson government is a right-wing populist government. And these things win votes. That's the reason why they do this. Right-wing governments today in the Anglo-Saxon world, and especially in countries that have been, hit hard by economic crises or economic malaise in general, right-wing governments in these countries can't run on a free market agenda, right? As the way that they could maybe 20 years ago. Let's privatize, let's deregulate, let's make free trade agreements. That doesn't work anymore. People are pissed at the model. People are pissed at neoliberalism. So the only thing they have is nationalism. So that's why they go on, these moves to promote national symbols. That's why they, they stoke kind of nationalist / racist sentiments. They're all now opposed to like critical race theory and things like that. It's what they have to do now to win, and it's very effective. They win people over. They win people, make them vote against their class interests. And it's not like Britain really needs to be more nationalistic. Here's a poll from last year. Only the Dutch are more proud of their empire, or former empire, I should add, than British people are. And that's just sad. That's really sad. A third of Britons think that the empire was something to be proud of. I mean, how much more nationalistic do you want to get? That fully one third of people see it as a good thing, see the colonization of other societies, and all the horrors that brought. Not just horrors while they were part of the empire, but horrors after the empire. And fully a third of people say that was a good thing. And then another third is sort of, it wasn't that bad. So only 12% of Britons, 19% of Britons think the empire is something to be ashamed about. That is crazy. And it's much higher than any of the other, like I said, aside from the Netherlands, higher than any other ex-colonial power. I'm surprised at Spain, by the way, because most Spaniards I meet definitely don't have bad things to say about their empire. And Germany, I think, for obvious reasons. And I love the disclaimer. This refers to the 1871 to 1918 empire, not the other empire, which one I'm talking about. But this is a basic failure of national self-reflection and a failure of education, of pointing out the horrors of empire. And I'm sure this, I don't know if this poll has, certainly not here. I suspect that this figure has gone up, since Brexit. I would not be surprised at all. So, Britain doesn't need to be more patriotic, trust me. This demonstrates the fact that it doesn't. And, this is, if one of the only few British values that most people kind of can agree on is diversity of opinion and diversity of thought and free speech, then you shouldn't impose unity on a country that isn't fundamentally united and never will be. And that's a weakness. It's also a strength. But in the end, this is a country where it's four nations that compose it do not identify by, you know, the moniker of the state. You know, the term British is not a term that these people use to identify themselves as. So, you know, I don't know if it was bad intentions behind this or good intentions. I'd like to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, but still, this is just such a bad idea. And also a bad idea because the date that was chosen for Obon Day, as it's called, is June 25th, which is very close to Brexit Day, because Brexit was on a 23rd of June. And so, you know, it's not the exact date, but it's kind of, it's the day that people like Nigel Farage describe as their Independence Day, things like that. So, poor choice of a date as well. I don't know if 25 June has any other connotations. I don't know why they chose it, but it's a poorly chosen date, and just poorly chosen in a country that, again, has such an aversion to public imposition of things like this, like patriotic songs in schools. You know, there's no Pledge of Allegiance, things like that. There's no, British people don't put flags outside their house like Americans do. It's very un-British. That's the best thing that I can say about it. But yeah, so this is ridiculous, just absolutely ridiculous, and it does suggest that this government really cannot get popularity, cannot get votes, cannot push itself forward without relying on a nationalist agenda. Because, like I said, right-wing parties today in the UK and the US cannot win on economics. They just can't. People don't like what they've received over the past decade or two. They don't like how things have progressed in terms of their personal prosperity, their personal affluence over the last 2 decades. So you can't run on the things that, like, Margaret Thatcher ran on in 1979 or Ronald Reagan ran on 1980. You cannot run on these things. So you have to rely on this populist nationalist symbology. So that's the real reason why these things are going on, and I suspect it won't be the last. So, to end this video, I shall leave you with, once again, this amazing song to the tune of a North Korean propaganda video. So, enjoy. And before I go, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more good content.